StrayAllDay.com.
Baldwin, StrayAllDay.com. Topic today, we are talking about entitlement and how you have to really watch out for entitlement creeping in on you. Because the thing about us as human beings is we have to understand that we are creatures of habit, and anything that we are exposed to often enough, we grow accustomed to it, and we build habits very easily, as long as we stick to something for not a super long period of time, relatively short period of time. And once something becomes a habit, we grow accustomed to it and we start to expect it. Almost we start to demand it of ourselves. And you think about this works in all directions, by the way. So this works when it comes to things like addictions. What is an addiction? An addiction is a habit that gets ingrained, and it gets into our chemical wiring. It gets into our internal chemistry, and our body and our brains start to demand that thing of us, or demand it of the universe, and we'll do anything to go get it. That is what an addiction is. If you were to break it down in simple terms, that's an addiction. A habit, any of you, and again, it can work in positive ways too, things that you want. So an addiction or a habit, we don't call it an addiction, but a habit could be people who like to go to the gym and work out all the time, or those of you who are, some people call you workaholics. Some people could probably call me that. People who are always working, and you could always be doing more work. And when you stop working, it's not because you ran out of work, it's just because you decided to stop yourself, but you are addicted to doing that thing. You have that habit. And entitlement is the exact same thing. Entitlement can come in many forms, but one of the forms of entitlement is when you are habitually indulged, whether tangibly, meaning people actually give you things that you think you deserve, or you keep getting told, or you keep telling yourself that you are owed something. You start to believe it, and when you really, really believe it, you get into this state of thinking, you know what, this is owed to me, so if it's not being given to me, then you're gonna raise hell and make noise about the fact that this thing that you think is owed to you is not being handed to you. And that is the energy of entitlement. You can see this in all different areas of life. You might have been afflicted with it yourself at times, if you're willing to admit it. But you see this all the time in different types of people. If you ever had known somebody, you do them a favor, right? Something that you didn't have to do, but you did it. Just out of the kindness of your heart, you did somebody a favor. Maybe they needed some money, you gave them a couple of hours. Or they didn't have a car, they needed to get somewhere, you gave them a ride, or you picked them up from the airport. Or they just were in a tough spot and you did something to help them out that you didn't have to do, but you did it. And what happens with people, and everybody has different thresholds for this, but there are some people who get into a state of entitlement just because you did them a favor one time. Now they think you're going to do them a favor every time. You just helped them out once. There are other people, you help them out 3 or 4 times. Now they expect you got to help them out the 4th and the 5th time. Everybody has a different threshold of when they may start to expect certain things. What I want to make sure that you do is make sure you don't fall into this state. You don't fall into this hypnotic state of thinking just because something was handed to you that did not need to be handed to you, that you start to think, well, I should get this every time. This actually belongs to me. I should get help with this every time, or every time that I want something, or every time I ask for something, it's going to be given to me. Any of you who has kids, you probably had to deal with this probably from a very young age with your children. As a matter of fact, a child is a great example of this. Any of you who sees, and hopefully this doesn't happen with your own kids, hopefully it didn't happen with you as a kid, but you see a parent who the first time their child complains or cries about wanting some candy, they give the kid some candy so the kid will stop crying and whining. Now the kid's going to start to expect the candy. Now the parent has a choice, right? That second time. Do I indulge the kid again so they don't start crying and whining again? Or do I deal with the fact the kid's going to cry and whine because I don't give them candy the second time so that I can teach them some discipline so they don't go through their whole childhood and then their entire lives expecting to just get stuff just because they whine and complain about it. And again, you look around at life, you will notice it's pretty easy to tell who were the kids who were indulged by their parents every time they cried and whined, and who were the kids who were told, listen, you're not getting any candy, you better shut the hell up, or you're going to get a beating, or something like that, or you're just going to have to cry about it because you're not getting any candy. You can tell the adults, because adults are just grown up children. You can tell who was indulged as a kid and who was told, look, you're going to have some discipline because you're not always going to get the things that you want just because you cried and whined about wanting them. You understand what I'm saying? And this is, man, they building this thing nicely. I'm just noticing the construction here. There's a nice building they're building here. But anyway, this is where entitlement comes from, is when people start to expect things that don't belong to you, but for some reason in your mind, the chemistry of your mind has constructed itself, has moved itself in such a way that you start to think, this is mine, this does belong to me, it should be given to me just because I want it. And you want to stay away from this, because the more entitled you become, the less you will think that, the less inclined you will be to think, and the less inclined you will be to actually do the stuff necessary to actually get things to where you've earned it, rather than thinking that it's owed to you. And entitlement basically robs you of any initiative you may have to do the work to actually earn the things that you want. Because if you feel like it just should be yours and you shouldn't have to do anything, well, why do the work? I mean, who's going to put in extra effort? Human beings, we are wired to conserve energy, mentally and physically. So why do extra work when you already had the mindset of entitlement? This is owed to me, I don't have to do any work. And this is what happens to a lot of people when they start to get entitled. They don't want to do the work, and what happens is you sit around waiting for it to be handed to you. And if it doesn't get handed to you, well, then what do? This is when you get a person who stagnates. They're not able to create success in their lives. They're not able to create or sustain, let's say, forward progress in life, simply because they're sitting around waiting for somebody to hand it to them, but it never gets handed to them. And the interesting thing is, the more things get handed to a person who has a sense of entitlement, the less inclined they will ever be to do the work to earn it. So then, when that faucet gets shut off and that entitlement is no longer being indulged, they don't know what to do. They don't have the tools or the skills nor the initiative to do anything to change the situation. They cannot change the inertia of the situation. Inertia just meaning an object or an entity being in a steady state, whether in movement or in non-movement, momentum or stagnation. Inertia is both. It's just different, it's opposite ends of the same spectrum. The more you indulge your entitlement, or you have your entitlement indulged, the less you'll be able to ever create your own energy in a situation, simply because you're so used to sitting around waiting for things to be given to you. So all of you, for this reason, of course, you may look at entitlement, you may look down on it, like, I hate when people are entitled and they think something belongs to them. You want to stay away from it for that reason, that's fine. It's more like a mindset, opinion-based, spiritual, let's say, reason. But the more important reason is, if you allow entitlement to seep into your psyche, then you will be less empowered to be able to do things for yourself when you finally need to. When there finally comes a situation when you do need to do something for yourself, you won't have any power or energy or authority to do it, because you're so used to doing nothing and just waiting for it to just fall into your lap. That's the most important reason why you want to make sure you don't allow that entitlement to get into your psyche too much. So with that said, I send out this daily motivation text every single morning for free to everyone who's in my text community. If you want to get that text, guaranteed to keep you focused, sharp, and on point, just text me at my number, which is 305-384-6894. It's down below in the description. And go to, if you want to get into my work on your game system, this is only for serious professionals, people who are, you're already doing your thing, you're already making your money, getting to where you want to get to, but you want to make sure that you have the structure, the organization. You want to feel like you're not running yourself into the ground trying to maintain your success, and you want to feel mentally, internally, like you're in control of your situation, not the situation is controlling you. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where you can get access to my full Work on Your Game system. You get directly coached by me, and you get access to all of my self-learning, self-training library of material, because I got a lot. I've been in this game for a minute. That's all at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all day.